Hi, it's Errol here, and this is Mystery Monday. Thanks for joining me. Don't you love it when there's a book and you don't want to put it down? And that's what's happening with me with Dreamless by Jorgen Brecki. And that's what this series is all about, helping you write a mystery that grabs your readers and gets them turning the pages. So last week we talked about um, the one sentence story line. And today we're going to talk about building from that one sentence. So last week we talked about your main protagonist, who he is, what his goal is, and in a mystery it's always trying to find uh, the murderer, the person who committed the crime, and 3, what things are in his way. So building your story structure builds from that one sentence to 5 sentences. So let's get started with that and how you can accomplish that. Years ago, Randy Ingermanson, who developed the snowflake method, proposed a way to summarize your story, highlighting the important pivots, what he calls 3 disasters plus an ending. And this is based on Aristotle's 3-act structure, and it summarizes the crucial moments in your story. So here's his 1 sentence to 5 sentences proposal. The first sentence sets up the story by introducing the lead characters and the story world. Okay? And the second sentence summarizes the beginning and presents the first disaster to force a decision that frames the story question. And the third sentence summarizes the first part of the middle leading up to the second disaster. So some people break the 3-act structure down into 4 acts. So you have that first part of the middle that leads up to the midpoint, and then the second part of the middle which leads up to the climax. So the 4th sentence summarizes the second part of the middle leading to that third disaster which forces a decision to pursue the final confrontation. And the 5th sentence explains how the story ends, including the final confrontation and any wrap-up that you want to explain. Okay, so how does this work for mystery writers? Because we are facing certain conventions and we want to meet our readers' expectations. So let's look again at those 5 sentences from the perspective of a mystery writer. So sentence 1, you introduce your detective and the world in which they operate. So you're going to give a picture of your detective, what they do, how they work, and you probably want to introduce one of your detective's major skills. The second sentence is the detective's current situation and how they get involved in the murder and who gets them involved. Often for police procedural, that's going to be, they get assigned to the case, or they happen to be there at the time and they pick it up. That's the second sentence. The third sentence is the detective's first attempts to discover evidence and clues, and the first suspects leading to usually a dead end somewhere in the middle. It's just all not working. It's even more frustrating in that midpoint. In the 4th sentence, the detective searches for a different set of clues, interviews new suspects or re-interviews the suspects that he talked to before, but from a different angle, or changes his opinion of a suspect. So a new clue or evidence sets him on the path to the true murderer. And that's what your second part of the middle involves. And then the fifth sentence is the detective confronts the murderer and gets a confession, or in some procedurals has a fight to the death. So your ending is going to depend on what type of mystery you're writing, whether it's traditional or cozy or heavy duty crime or police procedural. So those are how you adjust those 5 sentences to writing a mystery, because boy, it's all about readers and keeping them engaged. So with the structure in place, you can start creating your scenes. And as you brainstorm your scenes, the structure helps you find the places where those scenes need to go. And as you brainstorm your scenes, you may find that there's a scene that's missing. This is part of the thought process that goes into planning your whole story. So I hope that helps. I find that those 5 sentences can really keep you on track as you start constructing your whole story and filling in all the scenes. And also, as you write each scene, you know the path that you are taking your readers on. So it really helps you keep on track while you're writing. Okay, so a couple of questions we have here. What's the difference between an antagonist and opposition? Is the killer an antagonist in a mystery? That's a really great question. It's a great question for mystery writers because it can be confusing, because oftentimes in novel writing, they're kind of used equivalently. And for mystery writers, yes, the antagonist is the person who committed the murder and is trying to keep the detective from discovering their act. And the opposition, and there can be more than one, are supporting characters who, for whatever reason, frustrate your detective in his quest. So examples are a boss who doesn't like her, or a relative of the victim. Hi, Stan. Okay, so Stan, no worries, you're starting it and giving the answer, so it's all good. Stan, those are questions that came in earlier because I post on social media and ask for questions, so they don't always come in live. So that's the answer to that question. Thanks, Stan, and thanks for being here. Okay, let's get that out. And so back to the opposition. So so the opposition are supporting characters, and they are part of the subplot. So one of the main differences when you're writing is that the antagonist is part of your main storyline, and your opposition, your detective's opposition, are characters who, for whatever reason, frustrate your detective. And it may have nothing to do with that particular murder per se. It may just be jealousy or some ulterior motive that they have. but it's different than the main storyline. I hope that helped answer that question. That was a really good question because I think it's important for mystery writers especially to make that distinction between the antagonist, the person who actually committed the crime, and the opposition, which, especially in the middle of the story, just present frustrations and obstacles for your detective and try to keep him off track from what he's trying to do, which is solve the mystery. Okay, just a really great question. Okay, another question. I just finished The Roman Heir. Argolicus is such an interesting detective. How did you come up with him? Well, it was just sort of a sequence of things that happened. First of all, thanks for reading The Roman Heir, and I hope you enjoyed it. Long ago, my daughter, who went to university in Italy twice, said, "Mommy, the city you would really like to visit is Ravenna." And she started telling me about Theodoric and the Ostrogoths and how he came to rule Italy. And I wondered what it was like to live then. And that's kind of how this idea got started. And I started reading about it, and Theodoric's prime minister was actually a Roman, not an Ostrogoth, and his name was Cassiodorus. And because he wrote many, many letters for the king, he compiled them in a book which he called Varii. And Argolicus is actually mentioned 9 times in the Varii, but we actually know nothing about him except these little incidents where he is mentioned as the Praefectus Urbis of Rome. And so everything else about him I just made up. I thought he was an interesting character. He had this powerful position, and he was a Roman noble, but not what the Romans in Rome considered a great noble. So I made it a little more complicated by giving him a mixed race. His mother is an Ostrogoth and his father is a Roman noble. So that's how he was able to attain this position in Rome. But Cassiodorus mentions that he's just, not a big prime mover, and so he needs to watch his step. And I really like that idea because I like bringing up that mix. It gives him trouble in every story because he's not quite all Roman, and Roman nobility talk to him about that and kind of put him down. And then he has a best friend, Ebrimuth, who is an Ostrogoth, and they have a whole relationship. So I just thought he was a very interesting character, and I thought he was representative of the time when the Ostrogoths ruled Italy, and there were actually 2 sets of laws. So as he's going about solving these murders, he has to deal with what laws are applicable in any situation. I just thought he was kind of an interesting character, and that's kind of how I came to get it. So he was actually a real person who lived at that time, but most of what is in the stories is made up from my imagination. So thank you very much. That was a great question. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to chat about real briefly. David Amerland wrote a post in a Goodreads called "The Writer's Inner Struggle," and it's a great great description of marketing ourselves as people as a way to promote our books. And so I encourage you to read that, and I will leave it in the show notes on Facebook and have a link on the YouTube channel. So also another thing I wanted to tell everyone, my author newsletter is coming out this weekend, and if you'd like to get on the list, I'll post that link in the show notes so you can read that. It's things that I talk with readers and kind of updates on what I'm doing with my writing. So last of all, I want to thank you for being here on Mystery Monday. So be sure to subscribe here on Facebook so you'll get a notice when it comes. Or you can subscribe on YouTube. Just remember to click the little bell so you'll get a notice every week when Mystery Monday comes on YouTube. Either way, you get notifications every Monday. So thank you all for being here, and I hope it helps. And don't forget to send me questions so I can get them answered for you. All right. Thanks a lot.